Friends, what I've been thinking about lately is how many issues we seem to have in our society. We're dealing with things like, really, this is the biggest one. I don't want to make it sound like it's a small one, but climate change and all the facets of it, obesity, the fact that we are overfed and way undernourished, all this food-like substances out there that people are eating plenty of, but still getting that signal from the body and the brain that they need more because they're malnourished. And then the fact that our prescription medications are the use and arguably abuse of them is really causing a problem. And what we're dealing with right now is in our feedlots, part of this food source is that these animals are being given a subtherapeutic dose of antibiotics in their water that's been happening since the 1940s. This isn't to help make sure they're healthy, which you would think, especially when you consider the fact that we can have as many as 2,000 pigs in a single pig farm. We can have as many as 20,000 chickens in a single chicken farm. You'd think that, sure, there's a lot of potential bacteria buildup and so on that can get them really sick. So maybe it makes sense to use the antibiotics. But the reality is it isn't used for that. It is a subtherapeutic dose that is used for growth promotion. It gets these animals to grow bigger quicker so they can get them out to us to eat sooner. And this is really not helping us out. But as you know by now, I try to be more solutions-oriented than problem-oriented. That being said, guys, welcome back. This is Coach's Corner. I'm Jeffrey David Hartford, and in a way to find some of those solutions, my guest today is my friend Bennett Sippel from Mitten Rock Farm in LaGrange, New York. Bennett, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeffrey. I'm happy to be here, man.
Amen, man. I'm thrilled to have you. It is my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to getting some of these questions answered. I think you've got plenty of information that can help us parse through some of this and hopefully get us working in the right direction to get healthier. So with all that being said, tell us a little bit about your backstory. You know, what got you into farming, specifically regenerative, and then we can really dive into why regenerative might be the answer to all of those issues.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I did not grow up on a farm. I grew up in the suburbs of New York in Rockland County. I do hail from a dairy family in Wisconsin, however, but skipped a generation. My dad, left the farm. There wasn't any opportunity there. Became an architect, moved to New York, met my mom, and they had me. And so I grew up in the suburbs, went to public school, hated every second of it, always wanted to be outside. Went on to go to college. I went to SUNY New Paltz, and I studied ecology and education. And I kind of the first seed that was planted was that I was a vegan. I had long hair. I was going to school, and I was sitting in an ecology class, and they were telling us about the erosion problem in Siberia, where part of it was due to global warming, was the glaciers were retreating, rather, and the bigger problem was soil erosion because of that. And what the government started a program where they reintroduced ruminants and the native ungulates to that area, and all of a sudden the soil erosion problem went away, basically because the grasses that are native to that sort of Arctic tundra ecosystem were healthy again, and they retained and held the soil together. So all of a sudden, all the nutrients were staying there, where before they were flooding down into the ocean and causing a bunch of other issues now, because all that soil is dumped in the ocean, certain minerals, certain nutrients, at an overabundance. And that problem just kind of went away through reintroducing something that was there, and it kind of blew my mind a bit, because I had grown up sort of in the paradigm that human beings, the more we leave nature alone, the better off it is, and intervention by human beings tends to be ugly, which is true, but that it actually can regenerate instead of degenerate an ecosystem and actually contribute to native habitats and to wildlife, whilst also producing and maintaining human society. So that just kind of blew my mind. I was still vegan for a few more months after that, but due to a series of health issues, I started incorporating meat and raw milk and all those things into my diet again. I felt amazing, and it just kind of blew my mind out of the water. It changed my life, and so I just wanted to get involved as soon as possible, and then just started working on farms, learned as much as I could, and about 2 years ago, I came to Midwest Farm as a manager here, and the rest is history. And we're still moving forward. A lot of life ahead of us, but we'll see what else we can do.
Amen. That's fantastic. And I love this. So, we met through me being a customer of yours. In fact, I've listened to so many different people talk about regenerative agriculture. And the first one that really comes to mind is Dr. Paul Saladino. And he often talks about white oak pastures and, being introduced to them. I don't know how I didn't know you guys right in my backyard were doing regenerative, but I was ordering from White Oak for a while. And admittedly, the product was fantastic, but paying the premium to get it shipped out here proved to be a bit much. And then I was thrilled when I found out you guys were right here. So, I came by, I had the opportunity to meet you. And, I from an energetic standpoint, I knew right away that you were a great guy and this was going to really be a great relationship. I'm thrilled to be able to have the product that I get from you and to know that, again, it's right in my backyard and it's really helping our community got me thrilled. So to find out now that you were once a vegan and now you're doing what you're doing, I think it's amazing. In fact, I really love a lot about it because the truth is I've had this sense for a while now that if they were willing to speak to each other and really listen and look for solutions, not just point out problems, I would argue that vegans and hunters have an awful lot more in common than they realize. Because the average vegan that I've met, it isn't that they don't necessarily even like meat. It is just that they've learned a certain way and a path that, with their heart, God bless them. And I can relate to this. I've tried to go periods of time without certain meats just to see how my body felt. If you look at some of the documentaries out there, they show how the feedlots are run. I mean, it's awful. My attitude is feedlots should be done yesterday. We should be moving forward exclusively with wild caught and or regenerative. But, when you start to get to the root of it and find out what's going on, again, I really think vegans and carnivore and hunters and whomever actually have an awful lot more in common. So if you could dive a little deeper into that, what first got you into following a vegan lifestyle and how was that journey of you coming out of it?
Yeah, so I always cared deeply about animals, and as soon as I saw the documentaries, just like everyone else, right? And
Sure.
I was appalled, and not only from the animal welfare standpoint, but also, I saw like What the Health and all those other more health-oriented plant-based documentaries, and I was like, oh, geez, we're all going to die. Because we're eating butter, and I really thought that, and so it was really, I think it's actually the health thing, because I had always, been into exercising and just feeling really good was important to me. And I did notice, I went from a standard American diet to a whole foods diet. That's really what happened. I felt actually really great for my first 2 months of eating vegan. And, just like most people, the deficiencies set in. And before I knew it, I was, I had lost probably 50 pounds. And that's not like good weight loss, like muscle, basically. I just became thick thin. And, just ran into issues. But to get back to your question, what got me interested was the health and just wanting nothing to do with that system. And I think getting to your point where like vegans and hunters and carnivores having something in common, it's like we're all recognizing that, like we look around and they're like, okay, something's wrong. Like something's wrong here. Like someone being able to become 400 pounds is like, it's not natural. It's not normal. Like even when there was abundance in the period, like there was no one was 400 pounds, even if you were fat. Like it didn't really exist. It wasn't metabolically possible. I don't think until we introduced, all these modern foods of commerce, as Wesley Price puts it. And I think that's spot on. So I recognized that something was wrong. I thought it was the solution. Being how I felt after a year or so, it clearly wasn't. And my wife, though, she actually got Lyme's disease diagnosis, and she was very achy. She was weak. She was vegan as well. And that was actually kind of what ignited our shift. Is that she started reading about bone broth and all these things. And almost overnight when we started raw milk was actually the first thing we ate. And I remember we went to this, local farm in New Paltz, Old Port Farm. They sell raw milk. And we had gone together. We're like, okay, like our first animal product in like a year and a half. Like we're gonna do it. And we sat in that car, and I could have almost cried. It tasted so good to me because I hadn't had
Wow.
fat like that in so long, just like that raw cream. Yeah, so that was kind of our introduction, and yeah, we were just kind of sold from there on like the importance of that, and just like that, like our energy was back, libido was back, everything just started feeling better. We were like, oh, okay, so it wasn't the butter that was killing us, like that wasn't the thing that was wrong, but yeah, and it's kind of a puzzle we're all exploring on like what's wrong and how do we solve this, because there is something deeply wrong, right?
Amen. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. What I'm really looking for people to do, and what I'm trying to do myself, is yes, we can identify what the problems are, but we have to stop just focusing on the problems and stop just pointing fingers and making people out to be the enemy and so on. That's just become such a norm for some reason. If we can get together and have conversations with a willingness to listen and learn and seek solutions without it being dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that approach just lends itself to more of a duality, more of a us versus them type of thing, as opposed to a bigger picture where we can come together and really work at this. Obviously, when we think about regenerative agriculture, we're not eliminating anything good, if you ask me. What we're eliminating is the harmful ways of things. We're getting rid of the things that are stripping the nutrients from the soil. We're bringing it back to what it used to be. We're letting these animals roam on the land, eat what they would naturally eat, go to the bathroom as they would naturally go, which is going to get those nutrients back in there, right? And this brings us, so we kind of scratched the surface there a little bit into some of the obesity things and so on, but I'd really like to dig in a little bit, if we can, on the climate change perspective. Just from what I understand of regenerative agriculture is ultimately, if you contrast it to the monocrop cultures that we've got, when we have this monocrop over and over and over and over on the same field, the same exact crop, it's just stripping all the nutrients out. We're not putting nutrients back in, and we're taking this really wonderful, robust, organic soil, and we're stripping all the living matter out and killing it, and we're leaving behind dirt, which has no organic matter left. It isn't holding the carbon or the water. And right there, we're talking, it is going to be harmful for the human body as we consume the food that's grown in that area, but it's also destroying the environment, right? So, that's my kind of scratch the surface level understanding of what's going on. But if you can dive in with us and really give us a better understanding of what's going on there, let me know. Am I onto something that regenerative could really be one of the big solutions to a lot of these different problems?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on. That, there's nothing normal about a monocrop, and we, through industrialization, we have these new band-aids that, like a field of corn, like literally could not exist in perpetuity without like these heavy doses of chemistry, of glyphosate, whatever 2,4-D, whatever we use. And they're band-aids, and we're prolonging the issue. That it's really not something we can keep doing. And getting back to kind of the regenerative solution is like diversity is almost a byproduct of nutrient cycling, and so like carbon is a big, compound that everyone's focused on right now, but I think it really ties into every mineral and micronutrient and compound that we have. Is that how do we tie this loop in successfully, and how do we do that while also keeping our animals super robust? And so like that's why people come to our farm. Like our cows are only on 1 acre to 2 acres a day, and they're very tightly grazed, and so because they won't come back there for 60 days, and so that allows the parasite cycle to end. It allows that manure to completely decompose. We don't use any synthetic anything, which they actually did before when I came here, and it's so interesting because they were almost organic. They were pretty close, but they use this ivermectin, which is a huge thing everyone's talking about now, right?
Yep.
But it's very commonly used in all animal agriculture. And what it's do, it deworms, right? So it naturally kills worms. And so it also kills worms everywhere when you put it on animals. So they go out, they poop out, and that manure just sits there for years. Like if you get there and there's a manure patty that must be like 3 years old, and you basically sterilize the patty with ivermectin when you give that kind of stuff to animals. Same thing if you give penicillin, anything like that. And so, it's amazing because it's just like this little drop of fluid, and like it's like we have our hands on stuff that we don't really understand the consequences of. And so, just that's a small example of just the tiniest little implement of an inorganic molecule into an ecosystem and throws the whole thing off. And so now, I come back to a paddock after 45 days and that manure's gone. It's just fertile grass and it's thrown back. And so we're just optimizing that nutrient cycle every time. And we do supplement with redmond salt and kelp just because there's minerals in that most soil is deficient in. And there's nothing natural about an animal living on the same 300 acres its whole life, right? Like animals would roam hundreds of square miles, and there might be more cobalt in that area and more manganese and copper in another area, and so they're kind of sifting through and getting everything they need. Whereas here, we're limited to our 350 acres, and so we make sure we bring all that in. It's amazing, you just introduce all that, and all of a sudden, you don't need vaccines, you don't need penicillin, you don't need anything, you don't need ivermectin. So that's how that goes, basically. And yeah, so getting back to, that is the solution. The diversity of grasses, that just comes. Like, we're just moving the cows. Like, I don't feed anything, right? It's just that you go out there, and in any, 5 square feet, you could identify easily 30 different species of plants that these cows are foraging on. It's really interesting as the seasons change, like in fall, now the parasite load is the highest right before our first frost, and all of a sudden, like garlic mustard and mint, and they're starting to munch on cedar, like all these very potent antiparasitics, and they eat them when they won't really touch them in the spring as much. I notice them. There's just little things like that. And those come up naturally more in the fall, and they're there in the spring, but not really. They don't thrive. They thrive with like this weather, where it's like sunny and 50 degrees and 35 degrees at night, and so it's almost as if there was an intelligent designer, right? And it's what they need is what comes. And if we just back off, we don't even have to spread seeds, right? We just move them, and they create the impact. And there's a seed bank of thousands of different species in that soil already. We just have to give them the right environment to thrive, basically. So, yeah, that's my answer to your question.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, I didn't want to stop you there. Every little bit you add, it's giving us more detail, but it's amazing. I mean, you think about it, animals are just eating intuitively, right? And that's something that we hear about that now, intuitive eating. It feels like it's something that's kind of new age type of thing. And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Dr. Will Cole just came out with a book recently, Intuitive Fasting. And ultimately, it's a little bit of both, right? Just if you're properly fed, if your body is properly nourished, then we can absolutely intuitively know when to eat, when to go without, and when we do eat, what do we need, right? I think the average person is just so far from being properly nourished and actually being healthy that they don't have intuition with their food. They have addictions, right? It's really... Man, again, I try not to dwell too much on the problems, but it's blatantly obvious just how bad of a problem it is right now. I mean, something like 80% of the foods on the stores in our supermarkets here are illegal in Europe. I mean, it's not even food. Most of the things in these packages are, it's either some form of corn, wheat, or soy mixed a little bit differently with a different name on it and a different character on it that people, I like that character. Let me eat the supposed food in that box. It blows my mind, but I love it. I mean, I digress a bit there, but if we think about it from a perspective, you just said it. the animals, when they're eating this way and they're getting the nutrients they need, you said it, we don't need to vaccinate them. We don't need to give them the antibiotics, for at least from the perspective of their health, because they're properly nourished. They're healthy. And it goes back to the concept of the what's it called? Growth promotion is what it's been referred to in a lot of the feedlots, right? Let's give a subtherapeutic dose of antibiotics to them just so they can grow quicker, which isn't about the health. That's just about the business end of it, right? So let's get them out there as quick as we can to make as much money as we can. Now, I think this is a good transition, good segue here. It is about making money, let's be honest. As a farmer, yeah, it's wonderful to be able to give back, and it's wonderful to be able to eat those foods and get the right nutrients. But at some point, there is the end of it that, yeah, hey, we got to make some money. So is it, in your opinion, is it realistic for us to expect to switch over from monocrops and from the feedlots? Can we get to a point that it is sustainable to be regenerative everywhere?
Yeah, so I'm a huge, I know it's like controversial, but I'm a huge believer in that. Like, not only, yes, like we definitely can do it, but we have to. We've created this like artificial, and I would actually, and people, you kind of hear people more proponents of the conventional system saying like, oh yeah, it's not scalable. We can do this so efficiently when we, manage 10,000 acres of corn with, 5 tractors or whatever. But when you think about like what you're really doing, so like what's running that system is petroleum functionally, right? Like mined goods is kind of the bare bones of that, like diesel fuel, synthetic fertilizer made from NPK, extracted out of the air from petroleum. Basically, like that's the driver of that system. So like not only are those resources finite, but it's also like an artificially abundant system, I would say, in that like, well, one, like they fail many years. Like the crop insurance system is almost as big of an issue that not a lot of people think about, but same as our health insurance system of the way profits incentivized and the consumers of the insurance are actually losing a lot of money. So like most conventional farmers are losing money, but they have this taxpayer-funded insurance system that's backing them to be able to continue to do that, and they have to keep getting bigger, keep buying more tractors, right? And so like we cannot do that in perpetuity, and like diesel has basically created this kind of artificially abundant system that's finite, and the thing is, like, and a lot of, like, that mindset, so we're kind of applying this, like, reductionist, like, almost, like, engineer mindset to ecology, right? So we're acting like it's an engine. Like, an engine is complicated, but it's not complex, right? Like, any, like, person who's well familiar with an engine and well trained in it can figure out what's wrong with an engine. Like, you can reduce it into its parts and figure out the issue, but biology is like 2 + 2 sometimes equals 0, sometimes equals 1,000. So it's a complicated system. We don't really understand it well, and so we're trying to apply that through like these inputs such as diesel and fertilizer and herbicide, and I think we're failing. And in a drought year like this year we had in the Northeast, a lot of people's corn didn't seed, right? Like the corn wasn't there; they're just baling it up for grass to feed to cows. And so, like, as far as the scalability, really, like, I can produce more food per acre than a conventional farmer can, but my limiting factor is labor, right? It's like we need people doing this. Like, there's only one Bennett, there's only one Mitten Rock farm or wherever else I'm farming, and I can only do so much, right? Like, I have a wife and kid, like, I can't be farming 16 hours a day as much as I would love to. So, people are kind of the driving force behind this movement, and I think we need a larger portion of the population farming. I think we need a lot of young boys who are, instead of being driven insane through technology and everything else in the world, to do all the insane things we're seeing young boys doing. Not that we need to go down that rabbit hole, but I think if we had them instead out on the land, like harvesting food and killing animals and like experiencing that, I think we would solve a lot of issues. And so, like, yes, we can be producing way more food than we currently are in this country if we do this but we need the labor input, and you can get rid of the diesel, right? Like, I don't need the tractors. Like, the hay is kind of like a luxury. Like, we can get through most of the year without feeding hay if we stockpile correctly. All I need is like electric fence and some water lines and my cows, right? So, like,
Yeah.
it's yeah, and then if we had the people doing it, we could have pigs following those cows. We could have sheep following those cows, producing much more like pounds per acre as far as like meat goes, and not just calories. I think that's a very myopic way, because that's kind of someone conventionally minded, like, oh, well, my corn yields like X amount of calories per acre, whereas you yield less calories. And it's like, all right, well, we're not really measuring quality there, are we? It's like, we're deficient in quality, not quantity of food, right? So, yeah, that's my response is like, yes, we can do this, and we need to do this, and we just need more people doing it.
I got to tell you, I'm thrilled that that's your response, because that's what my heart is telling me, even though I'm not a farmer. And man, you touched upon a couple of different things there that we have to unpack a little bit. First off, man, yeah, I'm with you. We have to do it. You know, you think about it in terms of calories. You said oftentimes that's what they'll say is, on my land, I can get more calories with my corn than you can with whatever you're getting. What we're finding is that is the problem. That is the reason that we're dealing with the obesity. That's the reason that we're dealing with so many people being so sick, is because it's about how many calories am I consuming, not about how many nutrients am I consuming. You know, the calorie paradigm is such a mistake. You know, that doesn't take into consideration nourishment or hormones or a slew of other things. And that's a topic we could go down another time as well. But, you know, as you said, technology and the inactivity that we're seeing with our youth, it is absolutely contributing to them getting mentally unstable. You know, and a lot of that is stemming from what's going on with their gut, which is because they're eating these foods that have these chemicals in them that are designed to destroy bugs. And what is it that's in our gut? Is bugs, the bacteria, the virus. I mean, all sorts of things that aren't actually human, that many people, it's amazing to me that still to this day, you talk about the microbiome, and many people still don't quite grasp that or understand that. Yet that to me is the driver of our health crisis. You know, the gut-brain axis is a very real thing, and we're seeing so many issues that are really a mental health disorder driven from gut health dysbiosis, right? So, yeah. I mean, boy, we absolutely have to. And you also touched upon the concept that it is our government using our taxpayer dollars to subsidize this approach that has been making us sick. And, you know, I think you scratched on this too, whether you drove that connection or not. It's the fact that it is the fuel, right? Petroleum is driving that system, and we've got the petrodollar. I mean, man, there's so many links to kind of pull together here and say, what's really driving the decision-making process? And it sure feels to me, without knowing a ton of this, and I wouldn't know who to look at specifically, but this is about profit. This isn't about health. And we need to pivot that, you know, on a grassroots level. We need to have conversations like this and, you know, get more and more people involved. So do you have a solution in mind, at least like a local community idea of getting some of the youth involved? You know, we've talked before, you've mentioned when you went to school, teaching is part of what you studied. With that in mind, is there a way of getting some of this information into the schools? Again, trying to be solutions oriented as opposed to problem. How can we get more people to be able to help people like you out and grow farms and get more regenerative?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I mean, during my degree, my last semester I spent student teaching. That was kind of when I realized like I didn't want to be a teacher, because we had these kids in a concrete box and trying to tell them about the world. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, we won't go too far down the rabbit hole of like, I don't think we actually want to teach them about the world, frankly. Like, I think we want to make them just compliant little slaves, but I won't go too far down that. But yeah, I mean, one, get them out of the box, right? Get them outside. I think that's especially where younger kids belong. All people belong, frankly, but especially, I don't think they need to be, you know, working on worksheets for starters. But and then getting them out on the land. Yeah, I mean, they just need to get them to farms. More programs like that happen, the better. It's tough, right? Because the public school train is just it's such a fast one, and it's trying to do these things at scale. Like I remember like doing like, you know, if you're in an elementary school setting, like you're trying to teach kids how to cook, and like every kid can do like one stir on the bowl of the cookies. It's just like I don't really think that's how we learn. Like I mean, I view a more localized version of the entire structure of society as kind of our solution.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like, yeah, like I don't think our public schools should be so big if there is public schools at all. Like it should really be like parent led and like definitely like farmer led. Yeah, I mean it's kind of a question that like goes in like should our cities be structured the way they are, or should we be in, you know, kind of more of a population dense rural scenario where everyone is kind of connected to a plot of 20 acres or something of the like, you know, I'm not saying like the government should start some program, but I think if we were God and we would say like, how do we structure this so that it works? Like, well, like we do here on the farm, is like we would keep people near where the food is, and keep the nutrient cycle tight, right? Is like what we would do instead of like, it's kind of like a feedlot system. Like we have this huge concrete, like 3 square miles, and we truck all the food in, and then we like truck all the manure out. We dump it in the ocean, which just has all those nutrients that we just brought in, and then we extract more nutrients from mining, and then we bring it all back, and we just keep that loop going until we're out of stuff, and we poison the ocean, and we poisoned ourselves. And so like, as far as getting people more involved, yeah, I mean, I think it would require like kind of a whole rethinking of the world. But in more pragmatic terms, like, yeah, I think the more farms have people out, the more parents are kind of excited to get their kids out on farms. And just, you know, this is an option, right? Like, you don't have to be a lawyer. Like, you can spend your whole day outside with animals. I'm not saying it's an easy life, but it's certainly a rewarding one. And yeah, I think if someone told me that when I was 12, I would have. I wouldn't have paid for college, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah. That was a bit of a tangent, but yeah. I mean, I just think getting the kids out there, and like I think programs certainly have a role. Obviously, there's a lot of like that's like this Bennett's ideal theology, right? But then there's like the pragmatic of like, okay, there's kids in inner city schools right now who like need to experience this, that, and so like, how do we do that? And I think the more we can get teachers to care about this, get local representatives and school boards to care about this, the better off it would be. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Right? Well, ultimately, yes, but we got to start dreaming, right? Start big picture. Let's dream. What would it be in an ideal world? And then, okay, now what do we do to get there, right? So my wheels spin, man. You get me going like this. We're going to have some fun. So I think this is a good segue for you to give the information that you shared with me prior to hitting record about what you'll be doing within the next month or so. And then I want to come into that with a few ideas I've got. So you've got some news to share with us. Is this correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. So my wife and I, we were starting our own farm operation. I've been managing this separate family's farm. And so we're calling it North Haven Pastures. We're starting it with some family members. So we're really excited about it. We, you know, can't do it alone for sure. So that's what we're doing. We actually already have pigs on the ground there now. So I've been running back and forth a bit. And, you know, we're only 25 minutes north of where we are now, so it's the same local community, which we're excited to be about. We love the people here. We've met a lot of great people like you, so we don't want to lose those relationships. But
sure.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. Super excited about it. It's 95 acres, and then there's probably 500 acres of grass like around it, and right now it's just kind of getting leased for hay and kind of lazy farming, for lack of a better word. And so, you know, as our herds grow, that we'll have room to grow and take on some leases and be able to feed more people, grow more meat, right?
Amazing. So here's where my mind goes with that. And hopefully, even though you'll be leaving, hopefully Mitten Rock will want to do something about this with us as well. But maybe we start to do something where it's, have some families come to the farm, see it, get hands-on, get the experience, see what it's all about. Because, let's be honest, right? Like any profession, it isn't going to be for everybody, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to be for everybody. But if we can get this information out there, there may very well be some kids in an elementary school right now, public school setting, that feels like the outcast. They feel like they don't belong because that isn't truly for everybody. But if we could find a way, whether it's a private school or we get with the right people and we can get a school system built around this for certain students, maybe, so we start small by just getting some families. I really look forward to bringing my wife and my 3 kids to your farm, get the tour, get the experience, see what it's all about, and then just spread the word to more and more people. I think it's things like this, conversations like this. This is exactly why I love these kinds of conversations to be as organic as it is, because I wasn't thinking about this before. This came up right now as we're talking on camera. And I love this type of stuff, man. Getting this video out to the audience and getting them to start to think this way too. Guys, if depending on the platform you're watching this on, feel free, jot down some comments, give me some feedback. Let me know if you'd be interested. I can connect you with Bennett. I get so excited when we think about what could come of this,
Yeah.
So now you said you've already got some pigs at the farm?
Yeah. So we have nine hogs right now. They're out on pasture as we speak. They're 4 of them are 2 months old and 5 of them are 3 months old. So the 5 are going to go in March.
Okay.
So corn-free, soy-free. We're just, we're not feeding them much grain at all. It's basically like an oats, barley, and peas mix we bought from an organic grain farm in Hudson, New York. That's that, just to make sure they need a complete protein, unlike our cows who don't. So that's
sure.
A small supplement, and they're having a great time out there. They're fun to watch. I'm actually new to the piggery. I'm used to the cows, so it's been fun to kind of explore new species. But I'm super excited for the bacon. I don't eat too much pork now because no one does it corn-free, soy-free, and nor can I afford the people who do. So that's the only way for me to get it, right? And do it myself. So
I love it
for that. And we're gonna do breeding our own pigs, and getting some beef cows out there, and all that. And we'll expand from there. We'll see what other species we want to get going out there once we get there. But, that's where we're starting.
Wonderful.
Everyone loves beef and pork, so you can't go wrong with that.
Absolutely, especially when you can get such a quality source. Like you said, nobody's doing it corn, soy-free, pharmaceutical-free. All these different things that are being done to make it available and affordable and all that. Man, I want the stuff that's going to give my body what it needs. I want to focus on optimal health, longevity, and taking care of both my body, the bodies of my loved ones, and the environment. It's crazy to me to think that we've gone as far and as long as we have with thinking that we can actually not destroy the planet and not destroy humanity by doing what we've done to the extreme that we have, and I try to remain optimistic. I try to keep my heart in the right place and assume that it wasn't done with any malicious intent. It was done with the intent of feeding the masses, and maybe they didn't quite understand the degree of the problems that would arise from it. But we now know it, so we've really got to make these changes. And I'm thrilled to have found you and have a source of all this. So, I tell you, before we move on, I do have a few other questions coming to mind. But where can people find you?
So you can contact me through mittenrockfarm.com, which is the farm I'm currently at now. The new farm is North Haven Pastures, so it's NORTHAVEN 1H pastures.com, and that's my phone number's on there. You can contact us through there. And then we're also Mitten Rock Farms on Instagram and Facebook too. So I'm still running that for this month, maybe next one too. And otherwise, my name's Bennett Sippel. I guess I have a Facebook, but there's not much about farming on there. It's pretty outdated. So
all right.
That's where you can find me.
I tell you, I tend to get to a point, again, this is organic. I don't plan this type of stuff, but if you feel the need, especially with you guys branching out and having your own farm coming soon, I can't say enough good things about my producer. So if you end up wanting some help to get, a YouTube channel up and running, whatever, platform you choose to go to, just creating that content and driving the business and getting your brand out there. He's fantastic. So I could always connect the two of you and see if you think that's something that would work for you.
Yeah, that's certainly something we'd be interested in. So thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, cool. Well, I'll talk to the audience for a moment here. This is kind of the stuff that I have to get out there due to my friend and producer. If those of you watching want to support the channel, you can check out jhartfitness.com. We have a shop there. We have some gear. You can see where all our content is. And I tend to do this. I'm representing one of my hoodies today from the shop, and actually the hats from the shop as well. So that's a great way. I often get people asking me how they can support the channel, especially where we're still in the infancy, still growing. We haven't gotten to that point yet that we're making the big bucks with it, So we put that stuff out there. But yeah, Bennett, I'm so grateful for your time today, and I really look forward to an episode 2 we'll be doing once you get yourself established at the new farm. So I tell you, I think I'm going to leave you with this. I'll ask you to throw a little bit on this, but I really think we should do some serious talking about trying to find out whether it's a quote unquote school or just some sort of workshop seminar type of information to get this information out to people. And is that something you think we can realistically look forward to?
Totally. Yeah. Not right away. We got to move in first, but once we're there and get settled and we get our systems in place, yeah, it's absolutely in the cards and something we want to be doing. It's an important part of what we're doing, right? Not just producing media. That is kind of, we're basically proposing an alternative solution to how we run the world in a very small level. So that's kind of,
but it's
what we're trying to do there. So
absolutely, it's so true. And I'll talk to the audience, guys. If you're watching this and you're still here with us and you're interested in any of that, honestly, reach out to Bennett. Let's try to coordinate this. Let's make this a real thing. Let's get this information out there and get more people understanding how regenerative works. So I guess my last question for you then, Bennett, would be, we're talking a lot about regenerative with the animals, but what does regenerative farming with more of the produce look like? Have you had experience with that? Like growing certain plants next to certain plants, avoiding growing them next to other ones and so on?
Yeah. So I actually did work at a veg farm for a year, so I'm not the best person to speak to about it, but I have an experience with it. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just like good old-fashioned organic farming, like cover cropping and like rigorously rotating crops, right? Like, so we're never putting the same crop in the same soil once, twice rather. And so we're always, if we plant tomatoes here one year, it'll be, cabbage or whatever next year. Basically breaking that parasite cycle, that pest cycle, the same way we do here, right? With rotating animals, we rotate crops and veg. And fruit is really interesting because that is particularly does well in diversity, right? So the orchards, it's very hard to grow fruit organically, especially in the Northeast, because it's so high moisture. It's very pest prone compared to like a lot of the organic fruit is produced in the Northwest in this country, actually. And so, but the people who are doing it successfully are highly diversified, right? Like there's maybe 3 peach trees next to 10 apple trees or whatever it may be, and it kind of repeats that throughout. So it's not just like this one pest that thrives on apples can find it and just like kill everything, right? And a lot of orchards that are completely organic have a lot of success with integrating animals, right? Like integrating ducks and chickens and things like that into to graze below the fruiting system, because they really cut out the pest cycle, right? Like a certain beetle larva that plants itself into apples that will then kill the apple tree. That apple falls, the ducks or the pigs or whatever will consume the apple and eat the pest. And so that seems like a very alternative, very viable solution. And to me, though, I think truly successful organic systems always are pretty intensely involve animals. Because I don't think we realize, because we've all been alive for only the last 100 years at most, and we've been part of a broken ecosystem where animals are rare. But before we broke everything, they were very, very abundant. And so it's the more we recreate that in our food systems as we do other crops and things like that, the more integrated livestock are into that. They break all those cycles very perfectly in a way that I don't think anything else really can. And so that's, I think, the most ideal scenario for growing fruit, growing wheat, whatever crops you want. I think there's a place for all of them. So it's just doing it right and doing it in the right proportions, right? Like Dan Barber from Stone Barns, who's a really interesting mind, a very famous chef, talks about how like a healthy, in organic ag, it's talked about a lot, like healthy farms produce healthy people. There's also healthy people produce healthy farms. The way we eat is right? Like as a farmer, I'm encouraged to grow what people want me to grow. Like I'm growing pumpkin stuff because people want it, like people ask me for it. And so it's kind of more the customer demands, like humane, regenerative meat. More people will grow it and integrate it into their systems, which will therefore encourage them to have an even more robust and healthy agricultural system. So it's also the consumer pushing back on the farmer, not just the farmer kind of introducing health into the consumer. It's like kind of interesting feedback. So,
amen. And honestly, yeah, I love that. And honestly, that is really what fuels the idea behind conversations like this, because I think, unfortunately, there's far too many people that don't understand the benefit there. They don't understand the degree of difference between conventionally grown feedlot meat versus regenerative or wild. I mean, it is such a substantial difference that, man, when you learn the difference and you learn what it's doing for your body, it is a no-brainer. Like, I don't want my kids consuming that. I don't want to consume that. I don't want my fellow man to consume that. It's making us sick. It is quite literally killing us. And there is an alternative. So it's just a matter of us spreading this information and getting it out there. And, again, so that's from the health perspective. And one last thing that's in my mind, I'm trying to recall back if we touched upon this or not, but back to the soil. Not only is it that dynamic between soil and dirt with the monocrop culture, but the big difference between the soil and dirt is the ability to sequester the carbon, the ability to hold on to the water in that organic soil versus the dirt. I think you mentioned this at one point, whether it was on camera or we were chatting before, but things like erosion and droughts, these become bigger issues when the earth is worn away to just dirt and we don't have that organic material left in the soil. And it's, I guess, that's more of a statement. So my question would be then, how long does it take to get I guess, is there an average size farm or what have you to switch over from conventional to regenerative? What kind of window of time are we looking at there?
Yeah, so I mean, they could start right away, right? But it's like so it takes, so like to be a certified organic farm, which I'm not saying USDA certification is the be all end all by any means, but like it's 3 years, right? And say it's 3 years since the last herbicide or last drop of fertilizer was spread. So you can say that's mostly left the system. Like I think the best way to deal with that stuff is to bind it up into organic matter, right? Just like the best way we get rid of heavy metals and stuff is through the clay and the charcoal and things like that. It's like we got to bind it up. And so organic matter is the best way to do that. So that transition period, it's a long haul, right? Like mitten rock, I would say this farm is still, it's not at its full potential, right? Like we could be producing a lot more food. Our soil could be getting even better as we, just continue to evolve and continue to do this. But they say, animal health, we measure the bricks is the measurement for the sugar content of the grass, and for grass to be high in sugar, it just needs such a robust amount of minerals and nutrients and organic matter to grow on. And so 12 is kind of the target number. And it takes some farms, if you're going from just kind of strip raised or a corn monocrop, it takes 10 years of doing it like this, so you get 12 bricks grass.
Wow.
But it depends, right? Every farm's different. Some soils are just you can till it up 10 years and, spray on it, but it's still like great. You may have gone in with 10% organic matter, even if you're losing 0.5% every year, you still have 5% after 10 years. So it's like, it's a better place to start than someone who's been doing it for, our fields have been farmed like that for, 50 years. And like, so
Sure.
take that land longer to rehabilitate, but it doesn't take long to do a lot. I would say in a year you can really transform a farm, but I think the biggest thing in that transition is for the farmer's mindset to change to such a different way of thinking, right? And it's like the same way in regards to human health. So like instead of playing whack-a-mole for like this cause the issue, it's like you have to change your whole mind. So like, I just get migraines. Like, why do you get migraines? Like, what's happening? Like all these things. Same thing with the farm. It's like, we have a milkweed problem. It's like, do you have a milkweed problem, or do you have a selenium deficiency in your soil, and this ground hasn't seen a cow in 20 years? Is that your problem? And so it's like, it's kind of the same. That's, I think, the most significant shift is kind of the shift in consciousness for the producers that needs to kind of undergo. And I think once that happens, I think the rest is pretty simple, actually.
Amen. But man, there's so much overlap between the health of the environment and the health of the human body, right? I mean, man, when you're that unhealthy, like to your point, you can do an awful lot in a year. You can do an awful lot just by stopping the things that you're doing that are making you sick. Stop doing the things that are making the soil deplete of organic matter, right? Just make that switch now and it's only going to get better. And then we have the benefit of compounding interest. Keep making that choice over and over and over. Oh man, I could talk to you all day long, but I will do my best to wrap this up with you now, and I really look forward to episode 2, as I keep alluding to. So I guess with that, I'll just say, is there anything that you want to add that we haven't covered yet?
Not particularly, just support local farms. That would be really good.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's hopefully what, having this conversation and getting it out there, hopefully that's what we'll be able to get people to do. And, Mitten Rock and now North Eden, is it?
North Haven.
North Haven. Okay. North Haven pastures. Brilliant. Yeah, man. It's,
Thanks so much, Jeffrey.
This was amazing. I'm super grateful, and I look forward to next time. And audience, if you like this, stick around. We'll be doing it again, and I've got some more guests coming your way as well. So that being said, have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time.